I wanted to step out of the business a little bit, and I was burnt out from this leadership. I hired people that have some more experience, more in finance. I thought this vertical integration would really take off, and nothing happened. It was a 3-year debacle. I was absolutely ready to sell because I was just burnt out, and they almost bankrupted me. It was a disaster.
I didn't realize what I didn't know. When I had somebody that I knew had my back and wanted the best for me. I've been in the CEO doom loop and didn't realize I was in it and didn't have a coach. And it's tough. It's like going through addiction therapy by yourself. And, that's a hard way to go.
I was leery because I seeked help many times. I have no interest in being the smartest guy in the room. I was absolutely leery with getting help, but I had to take a break. I mean, you could have 20 bad coaches.
And if the CEO can't grow, then they won't attract a great leadership team, or they're unable or unwilling, because we talked about that ego. And there are some CEOs that they feel they need to be the smartest person in the room, or they need to be the superhero that just tells people what to do.
Right.
And you can't develop leaders that way. Welcome to today's episode of our podcast, Escape the CEO Doom Loop, where we talk with real-world CEOs about the challenge of building a great business without losing your vision, energy, or sanity. I'm Glen, Dall. I'm joined by my co-host and business coach colleague, John Ninkovich. And today we're joined by none other than Tony Stayman, the CEO of Abrasives, a leader in the abrasives market, which is based in Dayton, Ohio. Tony's team has been working with John for about 2.5 years, and we're going to explore what it's like to work through the foundation building stage where growth is possible, but clarity and energy haven't fully returned yet. So I'll be doing the interview for this, and then I'll be asking Tony and John some questions here. But I think our first one is, who are you and what does Abrasives do?
We're a family business. I believe it's 65 years. It goes all the way back to the late 30s for my grandparents. My father jumped ship from his father-in-law and started ARC in 1960, and we're an industrial abrasive company. And what that means is we buy large jumbo rolls of abrasive, and we cut it into different strips, and we make different products for the industrial metalworking market for like flap discs, sanding belts, discs, all kinds of products for all industrial. And we sell through distribution like Fastenal, Granger, etc. And that's been doing it 39 years.
All right. Nice. Tony, so here's our first question. And this is one we just always ask at the start. John's probably shared with you this concept of what we call the CEO Doom Loop. And it comes from a project we worked on with the CEO Playbook. We interviewed a lot of CEOs, 72 of them, and plus our own personal experiences and coaching experience, and really found that CEOs can many times get caught in this kind of downward spiral, right? When things aren't going well, they're hitting leadership challenges, or maybe getting kind of over their skis as a CEO. Have you ever had that moment yourself in your career?
Was a few years ago when I wanted to step out of the business a little bit. And I was burnt out from this leadership group I hired. So I hired a president. He brought in a financial person. We had more of an operational person in our factory, not a director, but more operational. And we had some finance support. We were in a transition of an ERP. We were in a transition of we vertically integrated. We started manufacturing actual non-woven products to compete against 3M. And we built a brand new building.
Okay. All right. Sounds like a lot.
Yeah. And we were $8 million in debt.
Oh, wow.
So
how did that feel?
There was a bit of pressure since I was personally guaranteed for everything. I've hired people that have some more experience, more in finance. And I thought this vertical integration would really take off, and nothing happened. It was a 3-year debacle. And
Wow.
I hired the people, but I was without financials. Every other month, financials weren't accurate because the ERP wasn't done. It was a disaster. And
Wow.
yeah,
How did it feel on you personally to have that much responsibility, right? Being stuck and not seeing the results.
I was ready to sell.
Yeah.
I was absolutely ready to sell because I was just burnt out. I'm the type of guy that, and people have said this, is rather than spinning in mud or ice, like a bulldozer, you put the grade down and you just keep plowing. That's what I did. And that's how I got out of the doom loop, because it was that or lose everything. And they almost bankrupted me.
So interestingly, Glenn, one of the things that we talk about, one of the things you have to do to get out of the doom loop is take action. If you just stay stuck, I love Tony's analogy. If you stay stuck spinning your wheels on the mud, you're not going anywhere. You just kind of stay there, right? It creates that uncertainty. So at least if you take action, you start to change things and you start to hopefully make progress and evolve. So I think that's a great analogy for what we're talking about a lot around how to get out of it.
Yeah, I do. I'd love to kind of dig into that a little bit more. I didn't use that dig in bulldozer thing now that I've done it. Spinning your wheels might be like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing. Is that
No.
what you mean? Or did you do something different?
No, well, so I still had the leadership group and I was still indirectly running the business. And my president was the type of individual who's the smartest guy in the room, which I did not realize. Shame on me, but maybe I was too excited to bring someone on and really not. I didn't have John at the time.
Okay.
So I really didn't do my due diligence on the interview process, more of a friend. And I thought he was really smart.
Apparently he needed to.
Yes. And I was fighting with them. And I was also fighting with the software company. And we had a gentleman, a young kid that had been working prior to the leadership group 5 years before. And finally, 2 years in, I asked the controller, our finance guy, I said, have you asked Justin, who was our IT guy, to help us? And he goes, no, he never offered me anything. So meanwhile, we were on the hook. We had spent over $500,000. They weren't complaining. So I changed. I was like, Justin's going to put this on. And that's when, after I said, Justin, you're going to be in charge of this, then I eventually fired the president and then brought a finance person on and let the other guy go. And then we put in a person who had marketing experience to run our operations, but I knew she could do the job.
Excellent. There you go. It's a who, not how. That's all about the right people.
Yeah. And I would say Tony is the best, and Lauren now are the best of any of my clients I've really ever worked with, on making hard
Don't let
people.
your other clients hear that.
Well, no, I think
Or do
it's
you want them
great.
to?
I talk about this all the time. I think they're the best at making the hard people decisions. So what we find in our work is, I was in a meeting yesterday with a client who made a hard people decision. I asked that leader, like, what was your learning in it? She said, I should have done it a year ago. I'll say Tony
Right.
and Lauren do a great job of really realizing that. It doesn't mean they're bad people, but they're not the right people for what we need organizationally. And so they do
Yeah.
a good job with
Yep.
that. And I think they've been able to clear up a lot of stuff because of their commitment to building the right team quickly.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Tony. And it's very difficult. Every leader goes through this because it's a very personal decision, right? It's a tough conversation to have and you're affecting someone's life. But at the same time, for all the other people in your company and the sake of your company, it's the right decision because they're still great people, just not for your company at that point in time and for what you need them to do.
Correct.
So now I'm curious, how did you and John come together? Because you mentioned that you hadn't been working with John then, and how'd that happen?
How did that happen? Well, my neighbor, John is his nephew, correct?
Yeah. I think we met at a party, a dinner or something like that. And I think that's how the conversation started. That's probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's a while ago.
It took 4 years.
Yeah.
Not really sure why it took that long. Maybe because I was just tired of counting on people and being let down. And John said something that triggered, let's do this. It was specifically about come into these companies, Tony, and I go and interview the leadership. And the majority of the leadership do not have a clear direction. They don't know where the company's going. They don't have a clear direction with their job descriptions. And right there, I was like, that's what we need. Because that's not my strength.
Yeah, that's great. So, and I love that you said there's a trigger because you've been talking like, oh, do I really need to do this? And it's interesting when we work with CEOs and what is that triggering decision? And generally, I usually find it's a lot of times CEOs, they've had success. They've grown their company to a certain level and then they want to continue growing, but they get stuck and they get more and more frustrated because I keep doing the same things I used to do and it's not working. That's usually the time that someone would say, I need some help.
So the question is, do you feel like you've hit a personal or professional ceiling?
Yeah.
So being men that we are, we have a sense of pride. Okay, not that women don't or whatever, but talking about men at the moment. I definitely don't feel at all that I hit my ceiling professionally or personally, because when I hired John, the thing that I saw is he had more experience than I had with different companies. And I wanted Lauren to have a better coaching experience than I did, because I didn't. Because I just kept seeking the bulldozer experience. That's what I did. That's who I am. So could I have taken the business to the next level with the right people and John? I have absolutely no doubt. Can I articulate things like my current president? No. So there would have to be, she has different strengths than I do. I am finally, it's taken a year or so, I'm finally figuring out, all right, I don't need to prove that, but I think that's a tall order and a difficult question to answer. At least for me it is.
Yeah. John and I have talked about this before. So as a CEO, I didn't have a coach. I think it might have been a pride thing, of an ego thing of like, well, I'm supposed to be the CEO. I'm supposed to have all the answers and supposed to be, I shouldn't need help. And I think I certainly run into CEOs like that. And I know, John, you had a coach and it made a difference for you.
It was a huge difference for me because I didn't realize what I didn't know. When I had somebody that I knew had my back and wanted the best for me in my organization. And I had the same coach at 2 different companies. And for me, it was just game changing. It was just my ability to go faster and work through all the issues that you deal with when you own a company or you're the CEO, the president, whatever. Having somebody that can hold a mirror up and make you realize what your blind spots were, that for me was just so impactful and helped me move faster and hopefully be a better leader and make a better impact to people in the business. And I didn't know it. We've talked about this before. I've been in the CEO doom loop in my first company and didn't realize I was in it and didn't have a coach. And it's tough. It's like going through addiction therapy by yourself. And, that's a hard way to go. And so this was a lot better mechanism for me to be able to get the counsel, quite honestly, and coaching that I needed.
John, I'd love to ask you, so Tony gave us his view of how you came together and why he decided he wanted to start working with you and what you had said then. And what's your perception? What did you find as you came into ARC Abrasives at that point in time?
The triggers that we see as coaches, we see the same kind of things repeating themselves with organizations quite a bit, right? There's those things that we see a lot. I think Tony was at that point, people was running the company again, day to day after he made those hard people decisions. He had Lauren, and I'd love for Tony to talk about how he really identified Lauren so quickly and moved her up so quickly because she's made a huge impact in a really short time frame. And her rise is really astounding. But going back to kind of the original question is that I think Tony was really open at that point to maybe just a different way of doing things. Like, can I get help and assistance? I think he was wary also. I think he felt like he had been through things before, working with other outside organizations, peer groups, those kind of things, and felt like he'd been there, done that maybe, and heard people kind of say all these things, but not really be able to deliver. And so I think that he was open, but there was some apprehension around working with a coach. I think as we developed both our personal and professional relationship, I know that he put words in his mouth, but I think that he started to really respect and value our relationship and the things that we could do together. And so I think that's kind of what it looked like and how it took off and continuing that journey today.
I also had another company called Aileron that was helping. And John's correct. I was leery because
Mhm.
I seeked help many times. I have no interest in being the smartest guy in the room. I was absolutely leery with getting help, but I had to take a break. I just think it's incredibly important. And you said it, Glenn. John says it all the time. It's people. I mean, you could have 20 bad coaches.
Right.
Mhm.
And so,
It's-
we're fortunate. We're surrounded by really good people now. So anyway, I
Yeah.
don't want to go on any more tangents.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about Lauren. You've certainly talked about her, and we talked to her on this podcast earlier. How did you bring Lauren in, identify her, give her that level of responsibility?
So I'm in an interview, know nothing about her. It was the last interview, and here's this woman, young, attractive, and like the craziest thing, like articulating questions. Who does that?
What role were you hiring her for?
They were hiring her for marketing. And so I'm just like, holy crap. My president was still there. So she leaves, and I'm like, you're hiring her no matter what.
Wow.
That's exactly what I said. I go, there's no thought here. We're hiring her. We're bringing her on. She worked for our president, but 5 days in, she was hired as marketing, and I switched her over to sales. And I told her, I said, will you put a plan together for sales? Because we didn't have one. And she started doing that. But let's say a year, I fired the COO who ran manufacturing, and I knew she could ask questions without waiting for me. Now, how many people have you hired that can do a job that you hired without your blessing?
Yeah. That's not many. It's the definition of an A player. It's like the dog that pulls the leash versus you having to drag them along.
Yeah. I was like, you're going to take over manufacturing. And she looked at me like I was getting senile.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll keep it clean. So, and she did it. And I did coach her a lot in there of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, you don't have to be an expert. Your next step after this will be president. But I just need to see, as an operational person, what kind of decisions are you going to make on your own? So I said, I can't give you a specific time frame, because if you just don't do it, then you're just never going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I hired her in 4 months because she came, let go a series of people, gave me reasons why it made sense. It was things that I wanted to do forever, but she did it. Never discussed it with her. She just was like, she saw it. So she was, the person that can see around the bend.
So, Tony, you use this phrase about Lauren that she can see around the bend. That's a leadership trait. And it's a question of like, how do you define leadership? How do you find leaders? And is it something that can be trained or not? Is it just an essential quality that someone has to be a really good leader?
It can't be trained. Not to see around the corner. I love that question because I fight with myself. As a leader, how much development of your leadership do you do? And we talked about that in Michigan at your roundtable, John.
Yeah.
I thought you did a really good job of answering that question. But if she did not take any direction from me, and I'm not saying that I'm God or that I know everything. That's not what I'm saying. She just took it on herself, saw that it wasn't working, and said, we need to change this. And we need to get rid of these people. They're not bringing value, and we need to move the ball along. And I don't believe you can teach.
Yeah. But now I'm super curious, John. What was your answer at the roundtable?
I think that people that are great leaders, I think it's almost innate. And I think that they really value it. And if I think about, like for me, it's always looking at sports or coaches that made a huge impact on me and the way that they led teams, the way that they led them through the ups and downs. How do we take the field? Like there's this energy and this passion that you have from a leadership perspective that you're going to make an influence on people that's going to be really impactful for them personally and professionally. It's got to move you. And when we talk about Lauren specifically, that is her leadership style. She moves people through her passion about making a difference, right? And for her, it's about giving back, about developing people, about getting everybody together to move in a direction. And when we get that alignment, that we can't, there's really no limit to what we can do. And so I think that, I don't know if you can develop that. I think it's kind of innate and people can refine it. I think you can refine it because I think we can get better on kind of skills of leadership. But I think like that innateness and then the wanting to get out in front and lead people and be responsible for developing them, holding them accountable. And as we talked about, there's days where you have imposter syndrome. Can I really be that person, right? You have to challenge yourself. But no, I agree with what Tony said. I think it's just kind of in you or it gets cultured in you at an early age, I think, right? I think you grow up around it a little bit. Like I know in my environment, I grew up around it, what it looked like. And not always good, what bad leadership looked like.
Yeah.
And what does good leadership look like? And then wanting to make a difference, right? I think that's what it's about for me.
Just real quick, do you guys talk about A players? And you guys have this experience. That's the reason you look at leadership groups all the time and you're assessing A player performance. So when you look across these leaderships and then you look at the person running the ship, right? Does any one of them have to have the ability to be the president? Or are they just really good at that particular role? How do you guys deal with that?
That's a great question. John, do you mind if I go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a huge value that John and I can bring is if you're you're the CEO and you've got your team, you have your relationships, your perceptions, maybe some of those people, have worked for you for a long time, maybe they're family members, who knows, right? Well, John and I can come in and to your point, but we've seen really great leadership teams and we've seen not. And we can be the person that sits there and we can also watch you play the game with your team as the CEO. And that's the coaching analogy for sports. And I wouldn't say that anybody at that table has to be a person that could rise to the next level. But I would say that there is someone who could be technically competent in their role, if it's marketing or operations or finance. It's also someone who can be a leader to their team below them. And what I find a lot is that I find CEOs that say, no, I've got a great leadership team, but it's the next level down that we have problems with. And I'm like, well, that statement doesn't make sense because if you have a great leadership team, then they should have great people below them because they're great leaders. And I think what a lot of CEOs see is they see, well, these people on my leadership team can get the technical things done, but they're not leading. And I think that's a difference. That's what I always look for.
All right, John, I'm going to let you speak, but you guys are just, this stuff I love. So if that's the case, that causes problems from the president, and then that causes problems below as well. So that kind of stalls movement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. No company can grow faster than the top of the company. It's a limiter. And if the CEO can't grow, then they won't attract a great leadership team, or they're unable or unwilling, because we talked about that ego. And there are some CEOs that they feel they need to be the smartest person in the room, or they need to be the superhero that just tells people what to do.
Right.
And you can't develop leaders that way. And it sounds like you did a great job with Lauren at not doing that and letting her and empowering her. John, go ahead.
I think Tony's done a great job with that. I think the other thing too, Tony, kind of building on your point from a minute ago, is those people on the team, on the leadership team, they have to be able to work together collectively. They have to be able to get aligned, even though they don't agree at times with what the decisions that have been made, direction where we're going to go organizationally. And that is easy to say and hard to do. And one of the things that we don't really deal with that at ARC anymore. I think ARC does a really good job of that. There are other organizations that I've worked with over the past 7 or 8 years where you're bumping into that, where somebody say that I'm aligned to what's going on with our organization. So we do a quarterly planning session. Everybody says, yeah, we're aligned. We're going to communicate to the organization. And then somebody goes and does the exact opposite of what they agreed to. for a lot of
Yeah.
different reasons why they want to do that. They don't agree. It's got to be their way. They're uncomfortable with what the new directions of
hmm
the organization. Maybe they don't trust. Right? And there's a lot of different reasons for it. But when that happens, the
Yep.
organization doesn't go anywhere. So those
Yeah.
have to be dealt with immediately. So people that can't get on board with where we're going organizationally, and maybe we make some mistake. And the way it works is that there's got to be somebody who makes a final decision when we're doing our work as a coach working with a team. And it's always the CEO or the president who makes a final decision. And that doesn't mean those are all going to be perfect decisions because we're going to make mistakes. So one of the things that's
hmm
important is that we're aligned. We go communicate that. We go put all those plans in action. We make those things go. We implement them to the best of our ability and then review it. Maybe we didn't get it right and we have to reevaluate that, but we have to be committed to go execute the game plan that the team has decided on. We have to implement that stuff. We have to be committed to it. When it doesn't happen, you have a fractured leadership team, and that organization's going to go back to Tony's analogy. They're going to spin their wheels in the mud.
Absolutely. Tony, I'd love to hear you're CEO of a family organization, family and company, 65 years. Have you always worked in the company?
That's a great question. So, the universal response, oh, you had a family business. Yeah, my mom gave it to me. I coasted on. Yeah, it was awesome. Trust fund, baby. No. So I was incredibly dyslexic, went to boarding school, went to college. I was just student. I was just studious student in boarding school and worked 3 hours a day for 8 years straight, I bet. Every night, Monday through Friday. Go to college, wheels fall off the wagon, find out about booze and other activities, and it was a great time. Dropped out of college, worked for my brother-in-law. That didn't do well. Anyway, I told him his partner was lazy and it was me or his partner, and I was out the door. Ironically, he did fire his partner a year later. But anyway, my mom's like, you need to get a job. I said, okay, fine. I'll work in the factory. I was getting my real estate license. I'm like, I'm not staying in Ohio because I went to boarding school on the water. So I'm getting out of Ohio and I'm going to get into real estate. And here I am 40 years ago. I am working out, getting out of Ohio, but I love the factory. I hired a consultant because our family didn't get along. And I was like, can you come in, take care of the family problems on a weekend, and we can be ready to go? 15 years later, we were an annuity for that gentleman. Anyway, he was like, you need to buy the business. So we did a buyout program. I bought the business in 2010, and here I am. It's a long story.
No, it's a great story. What was your turning point personally that made you say, like, I want to buy the business?
Well, it's what I knew. I really liked the industrial business. I want to grow this thing. And I had an option to sell the business. And I chose not to because I wanted to build the business.
So you said you wanted to grow the business.
Yeah.
Why did you want to grow the business? What was your motivation?
This is a funny thing. I love clothes. My mother likes clothes. We were in Germany looking at a piece of equipment, and there was a jacket that she wanted to buy, and it was $10,000, which is, an expensive leather jacket. So the next day we look at this piece of equipment. It's $150,000. We have a bank. We have a line of credit. We're not flush with cash. What did she do? Dude, she bought that machine in under 60 seconds. So it's like she had this passion to grow the business, and so did I.
Yeah. All right. So let's go back to, you said you brought John in about 2.5 years ago, and I think you talked about one of the motivations was that you had Lauren as a president, and you wanted John to be kind of a mediator between the two of you. What other issues were you seeing in the business at that point in time? This is a question for both of you. I'd love to hear, Tony, what were you feeling inside the business? And John, what did you see when you first came in and interviewed the senior leadership team?
If you do Six Geniuses, I'm a visionary and a galvanizer. So discernment and, getting into the details, putting structure in, like Metronome has huddles, it has quarterly meetings, daily numbers you have to hit. There was structure. And I knew I couldn't do that. I tried a couple times And I knew John could do that. And he did that with metronome, but absolutely needing all that. And John hates this, so I'm going to do it. And this is not a plug for John, but it's the truth. In our quarterly meetings, he holds people accountable. And what grates me, and John wouldn't have lasted with me if he didn't, including myself, he keeps me very accountable because I'm the owner. He keeps me honest without a doubt, but he drives accountability. And that to me is when you put the structure in, you put the 8 players in, you put the recordables or the things that people have to do, you put the coaching in that Lauren does, which the systems of metronome have tools for, it becomes 2 gears really going very well together.
That's a great analogy. It's just so true. Yeah, it all works together.
It does.
Oh, thanks, Tony. Well, John, what's your perception? What did you find coming into the company and what's changed?
I think the first thing is, if you look at our first meeting 2.5 years ago and the evolution of that leadership team, the top team in the organization is dramatically different today. And it's not that all the people left the organization. They were maybe the right people to be on the bus, but in the wrong seat on the bus. And so that happens a lot in our work where we don't have a really high performing leadership team. It's probably the reason we get called in as a coach. I don't think CEOs know that a lot, but we know that that's the number one thing they got to get right. So I think that was apparent that had to get right, and we didn't have all the right people in the room to do that. That team has gotten tremendously better in the last couple of years. The other part of it is a huge one, and we talked about this a lot, Glenn, is cash. How do we fund the business? Tony talked a little bit about kind of this debt load 6, 7, 8 years ago, and that reduction or elimination of debt has really provided more flexibility to the business so that Tony operates as CEO and Lauren runs kind of all the day-to-day stuff, that we can invest in the right things in the organization, invest in the next level of people, could be equipment, all those kind of things, while Tony continues to grow the business and be able to get distributions out of the business at a different level than I did a couple of years ago. And it was really kind of working with Tony initially, because I remember our first conversations, as the CEO, he wanted X amount of dollars out of the company on a monthly basis. And I'm like, well, we're not at that point yet. Like, what are the things we have to do to get our costs in line, be able to collect cash, put that structure in order in place so he can start to get money out of the business? Because why be a business if you can't make a buck, right? And put that in your pocket.
Yeah.
And so I think those are the 2 big things, is getting the team right and then getting really good about managing cash, which Tony's still intimately involved in that. That's the one thing that he's still intimately involved with as a CEO, because it's his name on the line, is the cash position on a weekly basis. And so I think those 2 key things were really most important, getting the right people, and then really how do we manage cash, eliminate debt, so that we can make more strategic investments over time.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. Congratulations on the progress. So Tony, go ahead.
Just the doom gloom. So you guys talk about the doom gloom, and John, you said something. So these CEOs and owners, this would be an interesting podcast for you guys to do with someone. I want to take more distributions out. Family owned, I own the whole thing. What do? We sell it. We sell it to someone because why? We want to buy our house in Florida. We want to have financial security. We don't want the burden of all the stressors of debt or whatever, right? Well, that's an option.
It's
absolutely an option. What about the other option? The option of get out of the doom gloom and get out of your own way and develop a team and have the best of both worlds.
I agree 100%. And I have that. I have that with some of my clients where they run really good businesses, very successful. They've got the material things that they want, right? They want to be able to, as you get a little bit older, right? And this is kind of, I think, the progression of entrepreneurs where they have this organization. At some point, the day-to-day stuff gets tiring. They ran into this in our own family business. So we'd like to be able to transition to the next generation or bring somebody like a Lauren in that can run all the day-to-day. But the company really starts to operate very consistently, that foundation phase of the business to the next level of how do we start to get momentum as an organization. That transition is really important. so that we can get the kind of income out of the business that we really want while still growing and having a healthy business. And I think you can do both those things. I agree with what Tony's saying. I don't think you have to sell it. Maybe at some point you do, but I don't think you have to sell it to be able to invest in some of the personal things that you'd like to.
Yeah, I agree. And Tony, I've got two things on that question. It's a really good question. First one is I have a client I've been working with and had promoted up. It was family owned. The founder had stepped back and promoted up their COO to CEO just a couple years ago. And first of all, exactly your point, that's the original CEO, who's really now chairman, still owns a significant portion of the company and is still profitability has really increased in the company because it's being really well run by the numbers, like on the metronomic system. And they're doing probably better financially than when they were actually at the helm of the company, but yet they're still involved in business. Their name's still on the door. And now the CEO, he's about 2.5 years into his stint. I still remember him telling me this around the first of the year. And he said, Glenn, you know what? The system works. Like you just have to run the system, the metronomic system, and what he means. And secondly, he said, now within the last 3 months or so, I'm actually having fun being the CEO because he's built a really good team and the company is running the way it should. And now they made an acquisition, they're starting to expand, and they're able to do that because their core business is like that flywheel. It's running well, and it gives them the opportunity to, without overextending, go do some really cool things with the business.
I mean, that's kind of where we are right now. Lauren, she hasn't opened her wings yet. Would you agree with that? I mean,
Well, I think
real-
she's close. I mean, I think we're still doing a little bit of foundation building in the sales function. If you think
Yeah.
about it, we've really replaced everybody that's on the leadership team. Everybody's new in the last 2.5 years. So if you think about
Uh-huh.
the time it takes to make a decision that we need a different person in the room, you go recruit for that person, you're bringing them in. Hopefully you get it right. You don't always get it right. And we've run into some of that and run into that and some of that with every client, but it's really around, we have to build that top team. That's the most important thing we have to get good at. So that takes time to do that. And, Tony, one of the things that Glenn and I talk about, and Shannon Susko will talk about this too, it really takes about 3 years to get all the things that we do really humming in an organization. And I think it's even
Yeah.
harder
At least.
it's
Yeah.
even harder if you have to replace the whole leadership team or executive team. That's hard to do that because of the things we talked about a minute ago.
So Tony, how big a difference does it, you talked about before about having that leadership team and where you were, and then you look at what you've got now in Lauren and the rest of the leadership team, like what's the difference?
meaning the operations, the business, or the difference for me personally?
Mm.
I'd say both, actually. I mean, because they probably merged together, right?
I am not operational anymore. I am not in day-to-day operation. Operationally, the company is running well. I am still waiting for the revenue. I'm not there yet. We are an exceptional operational company. So we've increased our operations, we've increased our financial processes, we have increased our operation and manufacturing, material utilization, bill of materials, cash management, all that is perfect. And everything above where we are today, pretty much 50% of that can be dropped financially. And so I'm waiting for growth. Then I will feel my life has changed.
All right. What's your level of confidence that revenue growth is going to happen? Sounds like foundationally, you've got a lot of great things in place.
I think finally, the new guy that we've hired, I really believe that he will be able to execute. And I believe some of the technology side that Lauren's bringing in, I think also will help. And I'm getting my first big projections from Lauren as president, really for the first time with intentionality at the middle of this month.
So we've been kind of working on everything. We had some disruption of hiring the right sales leadership over the last couple of years. I agree with Tony. I think we got that right now. But I will tell you, one of the things that had to be worked on first was operationally. So Tony talked about the improvement in operations. Here's the problem. If my sales organization is performing really high level and our product or customer experience is not very good, it doesn't matter what sales is doing. So you got to fix that operational ability to deliver first. So sales can depend on our operational organizations can deliver the things. Our customers are going to get the things that they need on time so that they're not disrupted. So it'd be great if we could get those all happen at the same time frame for all that. But it's just hard. I mean, it's really hard when you look at the transition and turnaround that the organization's gone through. There's been some priority on let's fix the operational side first, and then let's get the sales thing fixed. And then that gets us to the next level, which is that compounding phase of growth organizationally. It's the last thing that we're really working through.
John, I was trying not to stay. Hopefully, I was more in the gain than the gap, because you're right.
Yeah.
I don't want you
No,
to
it's
call
fine.
me out.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
All right.
I think your answer's a good answer.
Yeah.
But I think
Okay.
people,
Yeah.
if people listen to the podcast, we get this out. Like, I think they have to understand those things. We can't fix everything all the time. It's almost impossible. So what's the priority?
Nope.
And so that's really worked out. It'd be perfect if we could get a sales leader at the same time we hired an operational leader and a new head of finance.
Mhm.
And they were all from the high level, but God, it's hard to do that. It's really hard to align all that stuff. So,
And Tony, if you're familiar with this, John, I'm sure you do it. Your planning sessions is that key function flow map.
Yeah.
And we stoplight it and we assess it, and you can't perfectly balance it. I would submit, I've never seen it, right? But you've got it, and you have to focus. You can't do everything at once. You can't boil the ocean. Tony, you may remember this within the metronomic system. You say, well, there's a foundational stage, there's a momentum stage, there's a compounding phase. And I actually had just had a client that won an award for the compounding, and I've been working with them for 5 years. We're still working through it, and there's still so many ways that they can improve. So, John, where would you say Arc Abrasives is on that continuum?
everything but sales as at the momentum level. And I think trending towards compounding. When we fix
Yeah.
the sales thing, and we will fix that. And Lauren's an innovator. She's thinking about how do we not just have salespeople carrying a bag traditionally and going developing relationships. Got to do that really, really well. But are there other things that we can do to drive revenue? And she's really thinking outside the box on that stuff. And Tony's allowing her to make investments through web technology to change that customer experience and see what that looks like. But I think that's still in the foundation phase, right? So I think that we're trending towards almost everything's momentum except sales. And some are really towards, or the operational organizations leaning towards compounding now. I think it's getting that good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, here's the question we like to ask to close it out. All right, Tony, we've talked about the CEO playbook. Hopefully, maybe John even interviewed you for that, for the first edition. If you were going to write the CEO playbook, because we're going to come out with another edition, what are 3 things that you would tell a CEO that they should do to be successful?
Driving accountability,
All right.
coach, don't answer, and drive culture. You can't answer. And it's not intuitive to me or not easy for me to not give an answer. It's really hard to just ask questions.
Yeah. It is a key, though. And I think that's one thing I picked up before. You said that Lauren was really good at. If you ask the right questions and you listen and you engage people, they'll tell you what you need to know. Right? Because like on the factory floor, they know their jobs. They know what needs to be done. And that's probably what really empowered her to be able to make such good decisions. She found out the truth.
Yeah. And the culture,
Yeah.
if you don't have the culture's based around the people, your A players. If you don't have that, you got nothing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anyway.
That's fantastic. Tony, this has been great. I really appreciate you sharing it with us. And I really appreciate you coming at it as, like you said, you don't want to be the smartest person. You know you're not. You know yourself. And you've now built a great team to surround yourself with that. And it sounds like you're empowering them, which is amazing.
Well, thanks, Tony. Thanks for being vulnerable and sharing
Yeah.
your journey. I appreciate you participating, and hopefully other CEOs can learn something from your story. That's why we decided to do this. It's hard to be a CEO. It's hard to own a company and hard to grow a company. And if they can pick up one thing from your experience or this podcast, that's what it's all about. So thanks for taking the time to do it.
So I just say to our listeners, Tony's story resonated with you. If you think you are a CEO who might be stuck in the doom loop or experiencing some of these issues and would like a good coach, someone like John or I, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to have a conversation.